Take it. Take it when you get it. All right. Good afternoon. This is the Administration Committee. It's 4 o'clock, and we're just going to dive into it. So
I think we should approve the minutes.
I agree. Approved.
Okay.
It's been a while since we met, but all right. So we're going to now talk about proposed lot division at 322 and 328 Southview with Amy Drake. How are you, Amy?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get through this rather quickly. It's a pretty simple lot division. The address is 322 and 328 Southview. And this is the proposed lot here, just on the north side of Southview Avenue. The lot currently sits at 9,118 square feet. The applicant is proposing to split it almost down the middle, creating two lots, one of 4,621 square feet and one of 4,497 square feet. This is to accommodate a twin home that was built on the property. So just share that common lot line, create two new individual homes for individual sale. Zoning of that property is R3. Within R3, lot minimums are required to be 30 feet for twin homes with a lot minimum of 3,250 square feet. Setbacks are 15 in the front, 20 if the garage faces the street, 20 feet in the rear, and a combined total of 15 for the sides with a 5-foot minimum. All of these lots and the proposed structures meet those requirements. So staff's recommendation today would be to take public comment if applicable and approve the lot division request with no conditions. And I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Okay. Is there any comment?
Are you inviting public comment?
I am, yeah, public comment.
Nils Peterson, Moscow Affordable Housing Trust, 510 West Bliss River Drive. From a zoning standpoint, planning standpoint, you should do this. But I'll also give you the reason you should do it from a financial standpoint. If the lot's not split, then the house will have to sell as a duplex. 2 residences, 1 ownership. Which means that the buyer will have to finance it as a commercial purchase, 20% down. If it's split, then the 2 residences can be sold to different owners, and potentially the buyer can get in at 3 or 5% down. So the chance to create more home ownership is greater if you'll agree to split the lot.
Thank you. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Yeah.
I have no questions. I think this is smart. I think we should do it.
Yep. I say we just go ahead and we recommend approval for the lot division with no conditions. And I think we can just put that on consent agenda.
Okay. Great.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Nils.
Else? All right, on to our third item. The mural on Jackson, selecting the artist, and we have Megan Cherry here with us today. Welcome, Megan.
Hello. Hi. All right. Thank you for your time today. So the mural at Jackson and A Streets, just wanted to talk through timeline really quickly. I know we've been chatting about this project since last May, but here we are moving it forward to installation. And so just as a kind of update from the last time that I was here with council or committee, the selection panel was recommended to the mayor by the MAC. They looked at 52 submissions that came in from across the country. Easily the biggest turnout for artist interest in one of our public art projects, which I think speaks to the fact that the site is interesting. The project design is good. I'm not sure all of the factors, but it worked really well, and we got 52 really, really incredible artist submissions. And so the selection panel had a bigger job than I think they anticipated, and certainly than we anticipated for them. But it's as we all said, it's a really great problem to have. And so from those 52 submissions of qualifications, they identified 3 finalists to create site-specific designs. The MAC also moved forward with those 3 finalists. So we had, in May and June, we had those 3 finalists looking more deeply at the site and creating those site-specific designs. And those were due and complete by the 21st of June, which was the day after Art Walk. The following week, the public had an opportunity to view and comment on those finalist designs. There again, we had an incredible turnout. Corey was tracking these public comments as they came in, and he received 316 public comments on this project, which is inspiring and wonderful. And I think it's just further evidence of how important art is to Moscow. It was a really, really great response there. And then the selection panel met once again to review those public comments, but also the site-specific designs. They ultimately recommended one design for installation. The MAC then reviewed that recommendation and voted to recommend that design to you folks today. So here we are on the 22nd at admin and hopefully going to council on the 5th. After that point, we'll move into contract phase with council approval, of course, and then ideally completing artwork installation by the end of September. And so I know everybody has seen this content before, but I wanted to put it up on screen one more time. This is the project theme that was provided to each of the finalists. This has really been the sort of benchmark for kind of content and the feeling of the mural throughout the process. And so ultimately the selection panel and the public overwhelmingly were enthusiastic about this piece, Celebration of the Camas Lily by Jay Raskershek. So just a little bit about Jay. I've got a few different views of this design as that overlaid onto the building that we will then see as a standalone sketch here at the end of the presentation. So a little bit about Jay. He's a scientific illustrator. He went to school to be a scientific illustrator, which is just this amazing, cool thing. And if you have a moment to look at his website, his work is stunning. And he started to work in murals a little bit later in his career, I believe maybe only a few years ago, but he's been doing murals. He did one at Albertsons, one for City of McCall. I just selected a couple of his mural clients, but he's really bringing in that idea of scientific illustration and mural artwork. And so that having that mural informed by an approach to or a basis in science is such a compelling idea for this location. Jay is also based in Boise, one other element that I wanted to mention. One thing that the selection panel really keyed into and found meaningful about Jay's work is that from a research standpoint, he really did a lot of research that was very specific to this region. You know, he worked with PCEI, the Palouse Prairie Foundation, and wanted to create something that had subject matter that was meaningful to this area. And the selection panel and the Arts Commission both commented on that being important. The other thing that both groups talked about was that this design made a really great use of this space with these arch shapes that sort of make sense of the building space that has those long, skinny windows. And so this kind of gives, responds to that structure. And of course, he's also bringing in that Vandal gold to highlight the University of Idaho. Okay, and so the MAC recommends, the selection panel and the MAC recommend this artist and this design. I will say that they also suggested that council consider requesting a version of this design with a blue background. Couple of thoughts on that. The public was in favor, so 210 out of those 316 public comments were in favor of this design and this artist. And that was kind of this design as is, but I mentioned that idea to the artist when we spoke, and he was a little concerned about changing the background of the design, just because it would alter, forgive me, the ecosystem of the design. So he was a little concerned about that. He's open to the ideas that council has to share, but I think there was some reservation on that front. Just from a staff perspective, that background color change, right now we have this sort of parchment color, sort of wheat color in the negative space around those arches, and then, a similar hue with a deeper value inside the arches. And that is a color that is more likely to be light fast as we see this mural age over time. Blue does have a tendency to, it's like blue and red have a tendency to fade quite a bit. So that's just one consideration. One other thing that the artist brought up was that if we swap out that blue, the sort of that parchment color to a blue, we might start to struggle with blue and orange, which is a lovely complementary color harmony, but it is also Boise State colors. So I think that may be some of the foundation of the concern. That said, if council would like to see those design edits or design options, we would need to bring that back at a later point in August, and we are starting to bump up against our weather window and our project production timeline. But certainly, if council would like to see those edits, we can. I can go back to the artist.
I'm not going to tell an artist what to do.
Yeah,
with
me
this
neither.
painting.
Likewise,
Yeah,
as
sorry.
an artist, kind of, some people consider me an artist, some people don't, but yeah, I agree. I think for the above reasons that you've laid out, I happen to agree with those. That one, just the time frame, two, the pigment of the paint. There's nothing worse than painting something and then having being stale visually a couple months later. So, and the most importantly, the artist did a great job. So let's go with their vision. So,
Yeah. So do we put this on? Sorry, I don't know what we're doing.
well, we can.
I'm not in charge.
It's all right. We're team up here. So it's a discussion. So we do need to approve this, but I think whether or not if it's coming before council, it's coming before the 5th of August, right?
5th of August, yeah. I think we had anticipated this would be on the regular agenda, just given that it's
Yeah,
the visibility
yeah.
of the project and the significance of the project. We felt it'd be best to have this on a regular agenda.
I move we approve it.
Can we not offer the edits though? Like take it or leave it at council?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, let's.
Good.
Yeah.
I move that we approve exactly what the artist wants to do on this.
Yeah. No blue option.
No
blue.
blue option
No
for
blue.
council.
Yeah.
No blue
Roger.
option for council.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just meant like, well, it'll be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You never
Yeah.
We'd be here for days.
Yeah. It's totally up to.
It looks good.
Yeah, it looks great, and excited to see the artist.
And the blue would take away from the purple, and then it'd fade out, and this looks great.
Yeah.
I like how the purple stands out.
There will be a UV coating, but with
Yeah.
that said, that wall gets just hammered on by sun.
really?
So,
Yeah.
I think this will, we're anticipating that this installation will be 5 to 8 years. But I think, if we can choose those colors that are more likely to stand up to the exposure to the elements, we'll see the longer part of that
Yeah.
timeline.
I do have one question. Now that you brought up UV lighting, cover that. Does that also cover vandalism? I know that those can be one and the same product with a spec.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's UV and vandalism.
Yeah, it's a two-part. It's a Sherwin-Williams product that we just chose the product this morning. So thank you for bringing that up. That's fresh in my brain. Yeah, so it's a two-part Sherwin-Williams brand water-based anti-graffiti coating. A lot of those are, have silicone in it to, kind of prevent adhesion of graffiti. That said, it is a tricky surface because that exposed aggregate has the potential to create a really nice, mechanical bond. But at the same time, that is going to be professionally applied. A painting contractor is going to apply that product after the mural artist is done. So it's a pretty robust product that we're feeling confident about it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Thank you for answering all the questions, and we'll see you the 5th,
Yeah.
or if not before.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, next up, we have Cody Riddle, and we're going to be talking about the USH LLC spin license agreement for. Yeah, I needed to practice from the mirror.
Yeah, so switching gears quite a bit. We're here to talk about shared mobility that we've talked about a few times, but probably not really since 2022. So the request before you, the application, is for approval of a 1-year license agreement for Spin to deploy up to 150 shared mobility devices, or the scooters, very similar to the one you see on the screen there, within the city limits, including the University of Idaho campus. Like the first time, like in 2022, we've worked closely with representatives of the university to make sure their concerns, considerations were included in the draft license agreement that was included in your packet. As a reminder, Title 11, Chapter 2 of Moscow City Code was actually amended to allow for this sort of thing, or accommodate this sort of thing, back in 2022. At that time, the city approved an agreement with Bird Rides, but those devices were never deployed. They had a challenge with bringing somebody local. One of the requirements is that they have somebody local that manages the deployment, redeployment, and maintenance, and they struggled from that perspective. So that kind of fell through. But we're back today with Spin. Just as a reminder, the city code was amended to include a number of provisions to address, the speed limits, parking, where dismount zone that we'll get to here in a minute, all sorts of provisions to ensure that these operate safely and that we don't have conflicts with pedestrians. We have a number of users on our sidewalks, and so we want to be sure everyone's interests are protected while still accommodating kind of this unique and alternative form of transportation. One of the key provisions of the code was that anybody commercially like this that wanted to deploy the devices did apply and receive approval of a license agreement for the shared mobility program. You saw a copy of that draft license agreement in your packet. That it's very, very similar to the one that we approved in 2022 with a few minor changes that I'll highlight here in a second. As before, though, the license agreement and the code actually includes a dismount zone where the devices are prohibited from operating on the sidewalk. That's effectively the Main Street corridor, north to south, and then over to the alleys. The devices can operate in that area, but it's on the roadway. They take the lane of traffic in that location. Like before, there are two no parking signs outside the Student Union building, and then within Friendship Square, where you can't disengage and leave the device there in the way. Those are a couple of our highest concentration of pedestrian activities, so you can't park in those zones. There are a couple, like I said, new provisions, and this is after working with the university. They have kind of a core area they identified here where they wanted to limit the devices to no more than 9 miles per hour. The applicant agreed, and that was included as a new provision in the agreement. And they wanted it very clear that the devices were just prohibited outright from the arboretums and the president's residential property there on campus. So that was also included as a new provision in the agreement. A couple other provisions just to highlight. Anywhere on the sidewalks, the devices are limited to no more than 10 miles an hour. In the case of some of the pathways, like along the creek, 15 miles per hour is the maximum speed limit. They're still required to maintain a local agent, that we have that local contact. There's an impound fee of 20, if we run into problems, of $25 a day per device. So you can see it's in their best interest to manage these things and address our concerns, any concerns that come up quite quickly. The code and the license agreement we have the ability to designate additional parking, parking areas. We have the ability to restrict operation for special events. So for example, from the farmers market, with the technology now, they can geofence areas to where the devices are out. Rendezvous this weekend, I mean, a certain footprint, we can, certainly a great way to go to and from, but within maybe a block like that, we can coordinate with them. And I think it requires us to provide them 48 hours notice to do that. And then finally, this agreement as proposed is for only a 1-year term. So if we run into problems, I mean, certainly there are termination clauses, but after that year, we can revise, we can limit and adjust some of this. Because I certainly with something like this, it's so new for us. There'll probably be some learning lessons here. So with that, our recommendation is that you recommend approval of that 1-year license agreement with Spin. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Cody. Do you have any questions?
What do you mean? Who's a local agent? How does that work?
I know his name's Cody.
Oh, well, okay.
who we've worked with. I don't know what he does,
Okay.
Full time, but he has been more engaged. Last time we were absent until the very end, having that person to work with. I believe he's engaged. These are in Pullman now, or largely on the WSU campus, and he's been working with them.
Who does the impounding? Is that code enforcement or?
Through police, yes.
Do they have a shut off on when they start going too fast? Like when you're a little kid on go-karts and there's not, if you get over 15 miles an
There's a
hour.
governor on him.
Yeah, with the technology, it slows you right down.
Okay.
Yep. And if you hit those geofence areas, it will
Throw you off.
slow you. It's not that abrupt, but it does. I experienced it very, very recently. It does slow you down, and then I think it was on the app that told me why I couldn't be where I was or was trying to go.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense
Yeah.
for it. Any recommendations?
No, I see like the positive and negative of these things in other cities. It'll be a challenge to see how things go, and I'm glad it's a 1-year license, and I think it's good to try it out. But I do see in other cities, I see
Oh,
the
man, I'm
problems with
tripping over
them.
'em.
Yeah, they're kind of everywhere. But maybe people
I
in
mean, I think we
Moscow will be
committed-
better behaved.
Yeah, maybe so. I think we committed to it earlier, so I like that it's a year.
So can we do it on? Oh, we're going to do it on the regular agenda, right? I think.
You could go on because it's up to you.
This is up to us. So
I don't care. I don't know.
I'm fine with it on consent, but if you feel a need.
We do have the budget hearing that night.
Let's do it on consent. I mean, we just went through a
We did,
lot,
yeah,
a
it's
lot
not brand new,
before,
so.
but it's it's just changing the licensee.
So recommend approval
Thank
on
you.
consent agenda. Thank you, Cody. All right. Next up, proposed sidewalk cafe standard amendments with Bill Belknap.
Thank you. So sidewalk cafes are where we provide the opportunity for eating and drinking establishments to expand their service area onto the adjacent public right-of-way in front of their business. Our current sidewalk cafe regulations prohibit the service of liquor unless an establishment is a full-service restaurant. The code, if you read it, you could have a drinking establishment that serves liquor have a sidewalk cafe, but they could only allow beer and wine to be served and consumed in the sidewalk cafe area. Because of the difficulties and challenges of policing that and customers getting a drink going out, we generally have denied sidewalk cafes to establishments that are not full service restaurants if they serve liquor. But we do think, like, so that has left, I guess, presented a little bit of an inequity between the allowance of sidewalk cafes for different eating and drinking establishments. We were recently approached from the operator of Neat that is moving down to the old Neely's Travel location, and they were hoping to have the opportunity to have a sidewalk cafe. So we reviewed that as staff, met with council leadership to see whether the council will be supportive of removing the requirement for being a full-service restaurant for the service of and consumption of liquor within sidewalk cafe area. And the mayor and council leadership were supportive of the change. So that is really the major change here. So now any eating or drinking establishment that serves liquor would be able to serve that in the sidewalk cafe area. They only made a few other changes. So as we were going through and updating the code, we did make some minor changes related to clarifying the allowed uses within Sidewalk Cafe. Sometimes we've had questions about having outside vendors operate within that business's Sidewalk Cafe. That's really not the intent. The intent is for it to be an expanded service area for the business that the cafe supports. So we just clarified the allowed uses within the Sidewalk Cafe area, the application and license procedures, also a few items related to the physical barrier elements, and then if it was a violation, we changed it from a misdemeanor to an infraction, just to lessen. It shouldn't be a criminal offense just to violate the Sidewalk Cafe provisions. So those were the bulk of the changes. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
I'll say when we talked about it, leadership, it sounds, I like the idea of it. I don't see any reason why not to. Things are already being served, and it would be sort of restrictive to not allow some to serve what they have.
So you can have a drink. I'm trying to think, like, who has a liquor license? Lodgepole?
Casa.
Casa. So
Casa's
you can
probably gonna
have hard
be-
alcohol out there.
Correct. You don't have to be eating food, but they have to be a restaurant. You can serve hard alcohol, but let's say the garden down the street that doesn't have a kitchen, isn't a restaurant, cannot. And so there's a little bit of a disparity between those two. And then even just because of the concern about policing that, something like the garden or another bar has not been allowed to have one, that would be restricted to beer and wine because of the difficulty. That'd be hard for us to police. So this would just eliminate that requirement that they be a full service restaurant, and sidewalk cafes could serve beer, wine, and liquor.
Yep, call for it.
I agree. All right. Do you wanna?
I'm not super excited about it, but I guess it doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense to eliminate them and not other people. I'm just not excited about having people drinking scotch on the street.
But they're within that. They're not wandering down the street.
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have wine, and I'm going to have a bourbon outside.
Yeah.
I'll have a Shirley Temple.
Yes.
And this will need to go on the regular agenda because it is an ordinance.
Yeah, so I think we recommend putting it on regular
do.
agenda for the ordinance before I have the council.
Thank you.
Can we recommend to put it on there without a recommendation for approval? We just put it on there? How do
Okay.
we do that?
Yeah.
Can we be neutral about it?
You can.
Yeah.
The committee is not required to provide any type of recommendation.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Next up is, again, we have Mr. Bill Belknap talking about emergency radio equipment purchasing approval.
So next two agenda items are going to be about emergency radio systems. So the first item is the purchase of the actual portable, so the handheld radios you see people carrying around, and the mobiles that are mounted in vehicles. So the city has identified a problem with our emergency radio system. It's reaching that end of life. We have several that we've had to scavenge parts from old decrepit devices because they are 20 years or more in age. And so we have several areas in the community where we do not have coverage, where first responders cannot communicate with dispatch in certain buildings and actually even certain outdoor locations within the city. So it's been identified as a major challenge area for the city to upgrade our emergency radio system. So there's two components here. One's going to be to replace the actual radios themselves, so the mobiles and portables. And then the next agenda item is going to be to hire a company to install new repeaters and change really dramatically change the structure of our radio system. So in accordance with our purchasing policy that we adopted last year, any purchase over $150,000 has to be approved by the council. So this is a budgeted expense, and you may recall presentations from last year or just a little bit prior where we were anticipating this project to be close to $3.5 million of total project cost. And that was kind of taking the worst case estimates from the engineer. We were seeing exceptional inflationary increases in costs, so I had a 20% contingency onto that to get to that 3.5 million number. Combined, we're going to be really much closer to 2.3 million. So we're going to be about 1.2 underneath our earlier estimates. So the first component here is to purchase the Motorola replacement radios. So that will include all fire, police, public works, portables and mobiles, all additional accessories and batteries. And then it also pay for the vendor to come in and do that one-time programming to get all of those devices. We have almost 300 radios to get them all programmed and set up on our frequencies. So this would be purchased underneath a statewide cooperative contract. So the state of Idaho has actually adopted this contract. It was led by Washington, but essentially states can use each other's cooperative purchasing agreements. So this is actually underneath the National Association of State Procurement Officials, the NASPO contract, where we get a specified price for the purchase of Motorola radios at a discount. So that total purchase price is $1,046,977.55. So in order to complete the purchase, we do need the council's approval for that, since it does exceed that $150,000 amount.
So just put on regular agenda, correct?
This can go on consent.
Okay, go
It's
on
just,
consent,
yeah,
okay.
just an approval.
We've
Yeah,
talked
I
about it a
approve.
lot
Yeah.
of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have an extra question.
Yep.
Is there a way to find the radios? Like, is there some kind of geolocation, like on your smartphone? I just,
Boy,
where I work,
I don't
people
know.
are always losing their radios. Like
Yeah.
it's just a big building, so we use radios.
Glue an
And
air
then-
tag onto it.
I just wondered if they
Yeah.
came with something.
I
now.
don't know that we've had that as much of a problem because they are issued to a specific individual.
Okay.
And so we record that. So whether it's an officer or it's a firefighter, it is issued to a specific individual. So we know.
So then you're like, hey,
Yeah.
Joe,
Yep.
where's your radio?
So they are not shared.
All right, just wondered.
I
Yep.
recommend
Consent,
approval for consent.
Okay, perfect.
Then again, as you said, Bill, emergency radio system agreement.
So this next item is to actually replace our repeater system. Currently, we have independent channels that officers and first responders in different areas of the community, specifically this affects police because there are two repeaters and they have to switch channels depending upon what location they are in the city and have to be aware of where they need to switch channels. So what we're going to be shifting to is a simulcast system where you will not have to shift channels. There will be 3 primary repeater sites, actually 4 if you include City Hall. So one will be located on Paradise Ridge on KUID's existing antenna. The other will be up on Moscow Mountain on the Bennett Lumber Tower, and then will be for law enforcement. Let me walk through this. So the major installation sites are Paradise Ridge, Moscow Mountain, Well 10, and City Hall are really the 3 or the 4 primary installation locations. There's a little bit of work to be done at the courthouse because that's where our public works repeater is. So for all the public works employees, that's just kind of a standalone single channel radio. That's at end of life as well. So that one will be replaced as well. So there are 5 locations plus Wacom for the tie-in. For law enforcement, they're primarily going to be on Paradise Ridge, Well 10, and City Hall. We're going to be their 3 primary sites, and that will give us good coverage in the city and in close proximity. The fire department will be on those 3 locations, and they will be also up on Moscow Mountain because that gives them good coverage for the rural areas for the rural fire department and for the since the EMS agency for the Moscow Volunteers respond to any accidents within the Moscow Rural Fire Department service area. That gives them coverage for the ambulances and rescue vehicles out there. So they'll be up on Moscow Mountain as well. It'll be a 5-channel system that'll include a primary police and fire, 2 TAC channels, and then the public works channel as well. The police channels, the police dispatch and police TAC channel will now be encrypted. So both the radios that were ordered as well as the system will be able to encrypt those so you can't just use a scanner to listen in. during an event. Yep. So that'll give them that protection. The other 3 channels will be unencrypted just to allow for better interoperability with other agencies who may wish to maybe provide mutual aid or other support on an event. The total, so those will also have, each radio site will have redundant pathways, whether it's like Well 10 or City Hall that have fiber connections, or up on Paradise Ridge or Moscow Mountain, they'll have a backup microwave connection. So there's just 2 points of redundancy to each of the radio systems to make sure that it is up and available and running. So the total contract, and we did go through and evaluate the bid that we issued for this several months ago. Raycom was the only respondent to our bid. We did include an option for a straight VHF system, which is what we currently have, and also a 800 megahertz option, which is somewhat a newer technology for law enforcement. The challenge we ran into is the 800 just did not provide us the coverage out in the rural areas that we needed. And so we decided that it would be, at least at this point in time, I mean, this will probably be another 15, 20-year system, which will need to be replaced after that, and we'll see how technology evolves between now and then. But we really have no other partner agencies are on 7/8, so we'd have to buy dual band radios if we wanted to be able to continue to talk. That essentially doubles the price of the radios. It didn't provide us the coverage we'd want and the range in the outside rural areas. So just due to cost and coverage, we decided it was best to stay with VHF this cycle. And then we'll reevaluate when it's time to replace. So that's what made our radios considerably less expensive. Would have been essentially double the cost if we'd gone to dual band. So this will help us complete the project at a lower cost. So the total contract cost for all the repeaters, microwave, and installation is $1,110,167.50. So again, combined between the radios and this, we're actually going to be at 2.16 million. We budgeted 2.3 million in the current fiscal year, and we were anticipating we may have to dip into reserves if we were going to see something closer to the 3.5 we thought we might see. So we will be about $150,000 under the total project cost, or under the whole project budget for this year. So with that, we are looking for the council or the committee to recommend approval of the contract with Raycom to replace the emergency radio system.
I'm just wondering, how this integrates with the sheriff's office. Does it? What does the sheriff's office use?
So they have their own sites. So they do have they have multiple because they cover a much larger area with sheriffs. I don't know the total number of sites Tim mentioned at one point in time, but they have at least 10 or 11 locations throughout the county. So, but they're running on their own frequencies. So they are separate independent systems. We have our 5 licensed frequencies, and they have their licensed frequencies. And
Okay.
You could,
Yeah, I'm good. I just, it was just a thought. It's too late to be like, hey, we should really coordinate with the sheriff's office. And
you really wouldn't save anything. You have to have your own separate repeaters or frequency unique. Your antennas are frequency unique. Fire department does currently operate on the, and I'm not sure if it's owned by the county or Bennett, but they've got a combiner system where you can actually run multiple frequencies through a single antenna. And so there's multiple agencies that run through that antenna. But the bulk of the cost of the antennas are not that expensive. The bulk of the cost is in the repeaters and electronics, and those would have to all be unique for your frequency. And we can't run on the same channels and have us step on top of each other for dispatch. So there's not a lot that we would save if we were to do that.
I'm done asking questions.
no, you're good. So, approved the agreement with Raycom for the given amount. So,
And it can go on consent if you'd like as well.
I think we've talked about it a lot of times.
Yeah. consent. I'm with consent. And with that, anything from staff or anything else from Taco Bell? Adjourned. Thank you.